All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Vibin podcast. As always, I am your host, Trevor, and today I got to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that is extraterrestrials and UFOs. And I got to talk about it with somebody who I believe to be one of the most important, active, and productive members of this area of research, and that is Kosta Makreas. Now, Kosta is the co-founder of UFO Contactcom and the founder of the Global HICE ET Contact Initiative and the People's Disclosure Movement. HICE, which is HICE, stands for Human Initiated Close Encounters. Kosta earned a degree in computer science from Indiana University and has been a successful software consultant in the Silicon Valley for more than 3 decades. Most importantly, though, he has been a dedicated spiritual activist since his teens. As a young man, Kosta became fascinated with the mysteries of the universe, teaching himself astrology, meditation, astronomy, and reading widely on extraterrestrial UFOs, comparative religion, spirituality, Atlantis, and many other metaphysical topics. Currently, his passion is creating and nurturing a global citizens movement which contacts benevolent star civilizations visiting Earth. This movement seeks to empower individuals and groups to interact with these ET beings, and moreover to co-create with them a positive planetary transformation, a new Earth of peace, abundance, and justice for all. Kosta believes that we are living in a unique, challenging, and wonderful point in history as we transition to a new mode of enlightened and spiritual living where planetary peace reigns between humanity and all life forms on and off Earth, and I certainly agree with him. So, without further ado, here's our conversation with Kosta Makreas. All right, Kosta. Well, first of all, I just wanted to thank you for joining the show. You had done an interview for us, almost a year ago now, and I've very much been looking forward to actually sitting down and talking with you. I think that what you're doing is very important, and you're one of the figures in this movement, I think, that can do a lot towards making it more understandable to the average person what the implications of this sort of stuff might be. So I very much want to thank you for sitting down with me. I'm very much looking forward to it. And thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me back, Trevor. I feel exactly the same way. We've had good conversations in the past, and there's only more good to come from them, too. So I have some updates for you, and I know you have questions, and I'm happy to answer them.
Perfect. All right. Well, I wanted to start off with doing a little bit of background on yourself. Just because I think it's important that people understand both that the people that are into this sort of stuff come from a wide variety of backgrounds, and also that it's not something that it's not coming from a trailer park in New Hampshire or whatever, or New Mexico that mainstream media might have you believe. Let's just start off with a little bit of background on yourself.
Sure. I do have pretty much a normal background. I, believe it or not, had a normal and very happy childhood. Born and bred in the great U.S. Midwest in Indiana.
Okay.
In a very loving family with many happy childhood memories and enjoying life. So I was very typical in that way and had a really good formative and supportive family atmosphere. I subsequently, well, there's a couple things I can talk about, and I'll give you the line of my professional kind of development, which most of us have to go through as we get educated, find jobs, and make our way in the world and support ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. In that vein, I'm pretty normal as well, because I went to Indiana University in Bloomington, graduated in 1977 in computer science with a minor in mathematics. So that was really my passion at the time. Subsequently, I've spent almost 4 decades in that field as a computer scientist and an independent contractor, especially here in the Silicon Valley in California, where I moved in the early 80s. So I've had a very, very typical kind of nerdy engineer career that's been very successful. Doing fun and creative things, working in a lot of small and large companies in this field, and watching the amazing technological revolutions kind of from the belly of the beast right here in the Silicon Valley. So all that has been real exciting, and it's allowed me to make a living and have a family here and support myself, so that I can do some of the other things that are really, really my passions, which is what brings us together and what we're going to be talking about here. So that's kind of my standard day job. I like to call it the day job kind of bio.
Yeah.
So I should say, I'm located here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I have my second marriage with 2 adult children and lots of friends and neighbors. Live in a wonderful part of the world here, and I'm very happy with it. So I want everyone to have all the happiness in all these realms that I have, and that gets me to talking about why I'm involved and where I came from and getting to this galactic UFO ET contact movement. Along that line, when I was young, growing up in Indiana, I encountered my first UFO book, I want to say before I was 10, bought it off a grocery shelf, and was just immediately smitten. I think it might have been the Betty and Barney Hill book, the classic of the day, because this was back in the 60s when there weren't so many books and such an explosion of information that we might take for granted right now. So this was a really big deal, especially in Indiana. Didn't talk too loudly about my interest in UFOs, but I did some school projects and just kept wanting to find out more, and I never knew why. At that time, too, I had a deep interest in astronomy, so I had a telescope. I was always out in my backyard looking at the stars and feeling such a tug, kind of a yearning, like I belong out there. I'm an explorer. I should be in a spaceship. I also read a lot of science fiction and had an active imagination. So you can see where all this stuff kind of dovetails together in terms of my interest in the stars and astronomy and in life as it might exist outside of the Earth. I also might want to add that the 60s were an exciting time because my entire generation here in the U.S. was smitten by the Apollo and Gemini space programs. So that was really inspiring because we were living all these accomplishments as we watched them on TV, and it fired our imaginations. Star Trek, this TV show, was also launched. Many in your audience may not be able to appreciate, because they may not be as old as I am, what a dramatic effect the space program and a show like Star Trek, when it was introduced, had on many of us. It just opened up our eyes, our hearts, our imaginations, and so much more spun off after that. So these were groundbreaking years, and I was totally a part of all that and blossomed with it. Years later, in 2006, after getting my education, going through divorce, remarriage, etc., I discovered more information on UFOs. I got on the web and said to myself, I wonder what's been going on all these years while I've kind of been away from the UFO topic. And there I discovered that there was witness testimony from a lot of military people, professional people, people who had come from the Black Projects as we know them now, talking about the ET presence on Earth and about the government cover-up and about all the evidence that all these people had on film through their experience and photographs that definitely showed there was a cover-up and that we are being visited. So with that web surfing on that day, as I rediscovered some of this evidence, my life changed. I went to a training for a week in Mount Shasta and spent quite a few nights under the stars being taught how to make contact and actually being successful at that. And I can talk more in detail about that later. But, just as a broad brushstroke here, that was my, that time from 2006 on was my reintroduction to the UFO topic. And boy, I just jumped in feet first into the deep end of that pool, and I loved it. My life hasn't been the same since. It's the reason we're talking now. It has allowed me to do so many more things in this field and find a passion that I think is actually part of my service to the world, to the planet, something that I can do to leave it a better place than what I found it. And I can talk more about that later as well. So there you have kind of the two strands of my life, the normal one and the one that is maybe increasingly becoming more normal, but it's certainly the alternative part of my life that has become much the main focus, which is the ET UFO realm.
Yeah, no, I can definitely I can relate to a lot of that actually. I grew up and I was very much into astrology for a period of time in my childhood, and I had some books and was very into being able to see the different signs in the sky at night and things of that nature. But to me, the whole extraterrestrial UFO thing. Was almost just sort of a novelty, and while it was very interesting, I'm not sure how much I believed it until I think, like you, I discovered a lot of the military, government, and corporate witnesses online, um, which sort of read me down the proverbial rabbit hole, you know.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, was that the big thing for you that made you realize that there was a lot more to this than I think most people know? Was when you found that there was a lot of real, credible witnesses out there?
Absolutely. I mean, up until that point, I already had a belief that they were here and some evidence to that fact. But when the floodgates were opened, seeing all those people with medals on their chest from different projects who didn't even know each other, talking about their various roles in this whole topic, you just could not discount that. You know, it wasn't just one crazy tinfoil guy standing on a corner. These were dozens and dozens of witnesses. You put that all together, and then you, as I did, and I realized this is far bigger than any of us have been told. I want to know more. I want to know why. I want to know where do we go from here? What can we do? And I want to tell other people so they can know what I know. I do want to mention one thing that also primed me, which I forgot. In my earlier years, while still in Indiana, I had the opportunity to hear a firsthand story from a young woman who's actually was at that time a girlfriend of my brother's, someone who I knew to be a very, very down to earth, practical, head on her shoulders, salt of the earth kind of person. She described to me, and the only time she ever opened up about this that I ever heard, but one night she just told her story about being buzzed by a craft while driving on a rural road in Indiana on her way home alone. And this, what started out as a light in the sky, doing zigzag movements, which got her attention, became kind of, not kind of, but it became a light that was pacing her car until finally it went over her car and the engine died. She managed to steer it to the side of the road, looked up outside of the car, and above her 30, 40, 50 feet was a circular craft with rotating multicolored lights shining a beam down on her car, totally silent, but exhibiting no other signs of, nothing aggressive or fearful. Of course, she must have been fearful, but you can understand in that situation. However, she watched it, and it was definitely there. She wasn't hallucinating it. Um,
Wow.
Eventually, it just moved up and away and then just shot off into space, and her car was able to start up then. As she drove home, she could still see it doing zigzags in the sky ahead of her. And as she got home um, to a darkened house, because no one had reached there, her sister was pulling up from another direction to the house in her own car, and parked the car and came out yelling to this friend of mine, saying, "Did you see something in the sky that was just crazy? It was moving around like that. Did you see anything?" "Oh, did I see anything?" She said. So she got in separate validation there from her own sister that at a distance from another direction,
Yeah.
that same object had been sighted. Now, obviously, her sister didn't have the up close and personal encounter my friend did, but there it was. That story stayed with me for decades
Hmm.
until I started listening to all these witnesses saying their things, and I knew then that I had talked to somebody who I could trust, had told me a story that was true, and that made it just a whole lot easier. Since then, I've had my own kind of up close encounters that have only reaffirmed what I know, and I can talk about those later too.
Hmm. And you have to wonder with stories like that how often things like that have happened, but because of the stigma sort of surrounding the subject, they never told anyone, or they never told any. You know what I mean? Like you've got to wonder how many times something like that has happened that just we'll never know about, or the world will never know about.
Well, I agree with you. There are probably lots more times than we'll ever know about. But one thing I can say for sure, there's more people talking about it now than there were in the 60s or the 70s. Slowly that has been broken open. And that's a good thing, that people don't feel that they will be instantly ridiculed. There's still a fear of that, but we're getting a lot of information now from ordinary people. I just know now when I go to a gathering of, of people, say that I don't know, who might be friends of our friends, get invited to a party. And I'm not shy about it. When people ask me, well, what do you do? My stock line is, well, but my day job is I'm a software engineer. That's great. My passion, however, is this. And then I tell them a little bit about what I do. Inevitably, everybody, either openly or later on, they pull me over and they say, I had something happen to me, or I have a brother who told me the story of a close encounter. It's more prevalent than you think. And as soon as people feel that there's a safe place where they can go to tell their story, in this particular case here, it might just be me, at a party as I'm talking. But as soon as they have that safe place, they open up. And that's when you realize this is going on more than people, than most of us do realize. And hence, there's even a greater need to figure out what is going on. What is this about? This is like the hugest elephant in the room that only a few people are talking about.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, actually, since you've been sort of heavily, I think, involved in this sort of stuff since 2006. Have you been able to see, the growth of the people interested in it? I like to kind of think of it as maybe the Ancient Aliens effect, because it seems to me that has been, for better or worse, a huge catalyst in bringing more light to the subject. And I can say, for myself, that show, and what began as just sort of a weird interest in that show, led to a lot of the research that I did online and sort of opened up this whole new world for me.
Well, I have to agree with you. Even though I'm not a huge fan of that series,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of good that it's done in terms of opening people up. And I have watched, episodes of it, so I'm not just talking out of theory. But you're right now. What you just said is such a perfect example that it opened up your mind and caused you to go down another line of research. How many more people like you might there be out there that show, and let's say others like it, have influenced for the better to open their minds? So I say that's all to the good, because a closed mind is never going to change.
Mm-hmm.
But at least an open mind that's inquiring, even if you might go down some wrong paths, at least if you're open and inquiring, like they say, the truth is out there, and you'll find it, or it'll come to you. So the interest has grown in the years that I've been here. Absolutely. Recently, and I'd say recently, within the last 8 months, I think, online I saw that Huffington Post, had undertaken a poll of the American public. And what they found was that, well, the questions they asked was, do you believe there's a UFO cover-up? Do you believe that they are actually visiting now? Not, is there microbial life possibly out there somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
But no, are they now visiting the Earth at this time? 48% of the respondents agreed that ETs are here and visiting now. 48%. Another 16% were on the fence, open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
If you add those two numbers, 48 and 16, you get 64, which is roughly 2 out of 3 people who actively believe we have visitations, or at least are open-minded about it. That's huge. Those kinds of numbers, well, the question would not have even been asked with any seriousness when I was a child. But had it been done back then, I don't think you would have gotten such huge numbers. What I like to say is that you and I, Trevor, and those like us who are interested in this topic, we're quietly in the majority now on it, in terms of believing that galactic civilizations are here.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a huge sea change. I will say that especially the generation coming after you, like my children's generation, early 20s, millennials, are far more open to that topic than older people, and then than other people in decades past.
Mhm.
And therein lies some hope, because that generation has grown up with, Star Trek: The Next Generation, the Babylon shows, the et cetera, et cetera. And all the movies, right?
Yeah.
ETs and all that. Whether they're bad alien movies here to eat us or good aliens here
Yeah.
to play basketball with us or something. Either way, that generation kind of takes it for granted. When I go to the gym where I work out, which is being staffed by young millennials who don't know me, and I just kind of open up about the topic, it just still amazes me. They go, "Oh yeah, 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 that's cool." They don't tell me get out of here.
Yeah.
You're crazy. Go away. It's just like, oh yeah, yeah, my brother saw one, or yeah, yeah, I'd like to find out how to contact them. What I'm saying is, I get a positive response, male and female. It doesn't matter. The
Mm.
openness is there, and as time goes on, at least, and I can speak only for the U.S. because I don't live in other countries and don't really have a sense of where the belief system is there. But at least here in the U.S., even with the lockdown by the mainstream media and by the government, man, the truth is getting told. And there's an entire generation of millennials now who are open to this. And I'm happy to say that at UFO Contactcom, with my teammates, Lori and Jonathan and Danny, that we're going to be addressing a younger audience as we move along and try to educate and engage. Simply for the fact that's where the future is, and that future is looking pretty bright in terms of acceptance.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that we often talk about this on our podcast, but it's sort of that global awakening idea, and it applies to many different subjects. But certainly, as we've been talking about for the last few minutes, the entire extraterrestrial UFO arena, I guess, has definitely been opened up to, I think, a wider public. But that was a good caveat. Let's go ahead and get into what you're doing at the website, which is UFOcontact.com. What can people expect to find when they go there?
Sure. Well, we're doing it. They can find, by clicking Making Contact, simple instructions for how they can initiate what we call HICE, H-I-C-E, Human Initiated Close Encounters. They can do their own active connection with extraterrestrial intelligence. Again, that's clicking on Making Contact at UFOcontact.com. That's just one of the many things they can do, and that alone would be worth it, I think, because once people are empowered and they know that they can make their own contact and not have some authority tell them what they've just seen or what they believe, but they can use their own judgment, that's cool in and of itself. But furthermore, on the website, we have a social community there of 5,000 people in more than 50 countries who can come together and talk about their experience, their beliefs, have discussions in a safe place where they won't be ridiculed. Mm-hmm. And where they can learn and teach each other. So we offer a social community there. We also offer we're proud parents of our new UFO Contact app, which is available in an Apple iOS version and also in an Android version. So people can go to the Apple Store or the Google Store and download the app for free. And what they'll see on the app is informational resources that comes from our website, many fascinating articles and editorials on this topic. They'll also be able to, if they're a galactic member, have a galactic membership on the website, they'll be able to use the app to look at a map in their hand there on the app that shows where other groups of people have signed up who are interested in making contact and in talking. So imagine this, that the power in one's hand. For people who might feel a little bit alone, might want some company, they could go to this app, find someone in the town next door, or even on the other side of the world, it doesn't matter. And right there, they will be able to chat. They'll be able to text that person in the moment and introduce themselves and start trading information. And maybe they can coordinate doing contact together, etc. The possibilities are endless. And so these apps are really designed to promote the community. Mm-hmm. Everything is social these days, right? You can't go anywhere in the U.S. without there being some aspect of community there. And so the UFO Contact app is our contribution to helping the ET community, contact community, come together. At UFOContactcom, we believe we're the hub of the community. We're also offering a roundtable of many esteemed international researchers and educators like Grant Cameron, Victor Vigiani, Stephen Bassett, Danny Sheehan, who's on our staff, and many more to come, who are joining together to talk more and more about consciousness and its role in making ET contact. So we like to say on the website, where it's no longer about just the cool lights in the sky, which is very cool. I still get excited. But now it's really about how do we use our human consciousness, our abilities to make a connection with the lights in the sky, because some kind of intelligence is piloting all those vehicles. And you might want to ask, why are they here? What are they like? Where are they from? What answers might they have to problems that we're still struggling with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The things that we offer on the website there are an admission that there is intelligence there, and the roundtable of people is going to be talking more and more about our ability through protocols to use our consciousness to contact them and to see what answers we get, and maybe to see how we can co-create with them, with these galactics along the way. That's what I would say is the kind of the overarching mission of UFOContact.com.
No, that's wonderful, and I'm glad that you mentioned that you can sort of get in contact with other people in a safe manner and not having to worry about being ridiculed, which I think is definitely, even though we've just sat and talked about 10 minutes about how people are becoming more open-minded, it's definitely still out there. I know that, and I haven't really even told anybody about this. I used the protocols for a while. I want to say that it was in 2012, 2013 time period. Not really knowing what to expect. I wasn't doing it with anybody else. I was doing it by myself. Not even sure that I was doing it right. But towards the end of this, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 month period that I was using the protocols, I came home one night. It was 10 or 11. I was coming back from class, and my neighbor came up to me and was like, "Man, we just saw a UFO." And this is a guy who's he was a nurse actually. Never had spoken to him about anything like this before. Didn't really seem like the kind of guy that sort of thing might be up his alley. But sure enough, he had a video of this white light kind of shoot from the mountains across the city directly over our building. It was a duplex.
Oh my God!
Directly over him. And I was in the other side of the house, not at the moment, but that's where I had been using the protocols, and sort of hovered there for a second. He said he thought it was about 100 feet above him, but he couldn't hear anything, and it was just this little orb, and then shoot directly back over the mountains. And that to me, I mean, who knows, but that to me seemed, if anything, the fact that it lined up with the time frame that I was using these protocols that you guys offer on the website was pretty amazing to me.
I think that is a very classic and inspiring, as well as dramatic,
I mean, right?
story as I've ever heard. And what a validation for you to feel like, oh my God, I can do this. And that's really what we're trying to tell people, as what we call here the People's Disclosure Movement. Because governments have been hiding things from us, have been covering it up, now's our chance through using these protocols as people, as ordinary people working together synergistically to create our own disclosure movement, to find out the truth for ourselves, because we're not being told by those who are authorities. So we have to take it into our own hands. And we see a lot of people doing that. What you just did on your own there is something that, let's say, SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, SETI, funded by millions of dollars, with all their arrays of antennas, could not produce what you just did that night with, $1 change in your pocket or whatever, for free, basically, just by using your time and your energy and your intention. So that's the power that we as people have. I do want to mention, too, that in terms of teaching people how to do this and bringing them together. Um, I had forgotten to mention that our UFO is holding our first ever retreat in Toronto, which will be really exciting, featuring Danny Sheehan, Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, Victor Vigiani, those who are leading lights in this field, who are coming together to talk about consciousness and about this people's movement, in terms of where do we go next, and how do we continue to engage these civilizations, in order to promote the evolution of our planet, or actually not only that, but to promote the survival of our planet. So in Toronto at the end of August, for 4 days, I believe it's from August 28th, Thursday through Sunday, we'll be offering a firsthand experience for people who can come and listen to these speakers, as well as join us for 3 nights of contact while we're up there and then under the beautiful Canadian skies. For people who are interested in joining us, whether it's for the day or for a couple days at the retreat, they can go to ufocontactcom/retreat, RETREAT, and learn more about that. So I would encourage people, as a way of coming together with the community, to be face to face with these leading educators, and with just having a good time, to have an experience of contact, which I know we will have. But that's what we're doing. We're teaching people one at a time, I guess, or at a time, or 20 at a time. And I'm happy to say that in the network that has sprung up in these past few years, I'm just happy to see many people that showed up with an interest in this topic take off on their own and start forming their own networks, creating their own YouTube channels, their own Facebook pages, their own websites, to carry on this work, because this is really a network. And that means that in a network, if any one particular node of the network should fail or should be blocked, then all the other nodes are still there. The center is everywhere, and they can pick up the slack. So it's an important thing in terms of the growth of this movement, that the center of the movement is everywhere, where people are taking it upon themselves to build their own networks within networks within networks, and to carry it on. And we're here to teach and educate and help people and inspire them in whatever way we can to do just that.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention too that a lot of people out there might already be well on their way to using the protocols without even realizing it. A lot of it, from my understanding, has to do with meditation and visualization. So I think with a few tweaks, people out there that already have these things as a part of their normal routine might be able to sort of go in a different direction and start to maybe make their own contact.
You're absolutely right. When people click on making contact, what they'll read there is a very simple core template of how to use, as you said, meditation, visualization, intention to make the contact. It's really that easy. From people's living rooms, their backyards, or maybe out in a remote area, they can attempt this contact, any time of day, as often as they want. There's really no barrier to entry here, other than just your willingness to spend some time and energy. Having said that, the core template that we offer, the protocols for making contact, I do know that people then start rolling their own. If they've already got a meditation or visualization practice, they may tweak what we offer in a way to fit in with their tradition and continue to use it that way. I hear from people all the time, because I'm in contact with our members in the 50 countries all over the world. So I do hear of people saying, well, I tried this, I tried that. Some of us use chanting, some of us add Tibetan bowls, some will use radar detectors as part of it, or I'll use this particular meditation technique. There's no way that you can prescribe one technique for everybody forever, because it's human nature. People will want to improve or change something. But what we do emphasize in all of this at the core is that any approach to extraterrestrial intelligence, to our galactic star friends, has to involve a peaceful, loving, goodwill intention towards them. It should be free of fear and free of extreme skepticism. An open mind is okay, but the negative attitudes like skepticism or fear, set up vibrations that are not conducive to the galactics wanting to disturb us. Because if someone is fearful, I think the galactics are sensitive enough that they won't make appearances or attempt contact in ways that will make a person even more fearful or give them a heart attack or something. I think that's not a compassionate thing to do. So we do emphasize that a positive, loving, open-minded, goodwill, intentional approach towards the galactics is the absolute basis for starting the communication. And you know what? Eventually, that communication will come, and it will come in a variety of ways. Like I said before, the lights in the sky are wonderful, and I get excited even years later now every time I see what I know is a starcraft doing impossible maneuvers or responding to my thoughts and blinking on and off and doing so many things, right? But other ways that they can make communication is through personal telepathy with you, through your own lucid dreams, through maybe a touch on the shoulder or the knee, or through electrical phenomenon, like having your smartphone, which has been turned off, suddenly turn on and play a song that is very relevant to what you're doing. We hear stories like that all the time. So the galactics will find a way that's safe for them and for you to make the connection. And people should just be aware that there's many varieties of this connection, and to keep an open mind and to keep a journal and to watch how it happens for them. So this is a really great way to experiment. You know, we give you some tools, and then you can take it for yourself. And if you decide it's all a bunch of hooey, then that's fine. We're not telling people what to believe or not to believe, but we're confident that because we know the galactics are there and that they're peaceful towards us, that people who are of that same mind and heart will make that connection and will discover that there is a broad, loving presence of many civilizations who are visiting the earth at this time out of concern for what we're going through individually and especially as a species. And on that note, I want to emphasize that one of the things that we do during our we hold monthly events where we coordinate during a 24-hour period all of our teams across the world to join in a network and make contact. Although you can make contact any time of night or day as an individual with a group as much as you want. But at least once a month we get together as a group and I communicate with people and tell them when the time is and send out the numbers and statistics, and we all can feel like a community and a family that way. But during those times, we make a united approach to the galactics. And one thing I emphasize is to think of our network as being the forefront of a humanity that wants to co-create a new world for ourselves. Because it doesn't take much looking at the mainstream news to realize, you know, we're a planet with multiple extreme crises, any one of which could destroy life on Earth forever. Why are these civilizations here? We deeply believe that they have technologies that they can offer us, help they can offer us, but at the same time expecting us to do our own work. They're not gods, is what they've told us, but they've asked us to think of them as elder brothers, sisters, and cousins, family, who are returning to help us out and help us actually survive. So there are things they can do and things that they will only allow our free will to do, because we have, as human beings, to solve those problems that we can solve. And it's certainly within our scope to do a lot of those. For those that maybe we can't solve, that are too big, the galactics are wanting to co-create with us. And that's why I emphasize the co-creative part of our monthly events, or of any time you make contact. You might ask yourself, well, what should we talk about? Well, one thing you can ask, should you make contact or when you make contact, is how can we work together? Just ask the question, how can we work together? And then listen for answers and keep asking. Because I think they're very joyous to find human beings who aren't shooting at them, who are peaceful and who are awakened and conscious and wanting to do some good in the world. And I have to say that if we do our job right and can grow our movement big enough to continue making this contact more and more widespread, someday we'll have full open contact. what does that mean to the average person? Because I get asked that by people who say, well, I believe what you're saying. I know they're here, but what does that mean to me in my daily life? I've got to drop off my kids to school. I got to go to my job. I got to pay my bills. I'm struggling to survive. And I know they're out there, but that's not helping me, and there's nothing I can do. And my answer to that is, if you have a few minutes of time, use these protocols, make your own contact, and one by one, we will increase the morphogenic field that will make it possible for these civilizations to openly walk with us, and that the controlling elite groups that have been keeping them hidden from us or keeping them suppressed will find they have power no more. When those civilizations can work more openly with us, I tell people, just imagine just one thing alone, and there are many things: free energy. What's been piloting their vehicles? It's the kind of energy that we believe is free, it's universal, it's forever, it's clean. And suddenly, if we had that kind of energy as humans to grow our crops, to power our homes, our cars, our factories, our schools, our communities, our countries, think about it. Would we need to work the 40-hour, 50-hour, 60-hour work week just to survive now? Would half of humanity that goes to bed hungry every night, wondering where their next meal is coming from, stay hungry? I really think that just the energy issue alone, over time, will free humanity from base survival so that our higher creative instincts will have time to flower, so that we'll start enjoying our lives instead of just getting through a workday. So right there and then is one very practical thing I tell people, is just like, imagine if you didn't have to work 40 hours a week. What about that art class you've been wanting to take, or that novel you've been wanting to write, or that dance class? Suddenly, a lot more time will be freed up. And also imagine that when we're not fighting over energy on Earth, fighting to get oil from other people's sands, the militarism is going to be scaled back. We won't have to worry about our sons and daughters dying in a far-off land when we're not fighting over what we're being told are fossil fuels and limited resources. Because suddenly that energy is free. So I'm just saying, just imagine the ripple effect of just the energy. And I haven't even gotten into the possible medical breakthroughs that these civilizations can have. Imagine if they can help us cure cancer, so we no longer have to fear that, or heart disease. The ripple effect just goes on. And I'm not saying a utopia like that would be possible overnight, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And the power's in our hands. Like I say, just spend a few minutes, add your energy to it, and we'll get to a tipping point at some point where these civilizations are able to give us the flower of some of their creative genius. Because think about it, they haven't destroyed their planet. They're here trying to help ours, which to me implies a certain point in evolution that they reached in their own home worlds where they didn't destroy each other, and maybe they reached a certain spiritual, and I define spiritual in the broadest possible terms here, not promoting any particular point of view or not, but in the most loving, spiritual, universal way, they may have also evolved, and they're here to teach about that and to cooperate with us. So I figure we've got a lot to gain, and in very practical ways. So yes, their presence does matter. It's going to matter for generations.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you got into the implications there. That was definitely something that I wanted to cover, and something that I wanted to cover with you, because I think you've just done a beautiful job in sort of illustrating for people why it's not just something novelty. Why it wouldn't just be like, oh wow, that's cool. We know that there's extraterrestrials flying around in their space vehicles out there now, but that there is huge implications, and energy being not the least of which. And when you really get into it, I think that it's hard even to wrap your head around what something like a free energy source that is entirely renewable and entirely clean, how that would affect our world.
We don't know what we don't know yet.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
But you know what parts we do know that concern us, there are answers for all that, for all those problems. I'm convinced of it. But I do want to emphasize that it's still up to us to do our part.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had the money right now, I would start a good news channel that would print nothing but news from all over the world, from small groups, from ordinary people, not just institutions and corporations, telling stories about how we are getting along and are solving problems. Because we know the mainstream media just keeps beating us down with everything that's wrong and going wrong and the disaster du jour.
Yeah.
And that destroys people's psyches and makes them fear the future. But if I had the money, I would tell good stories, because they're out there by their millions. They're just not deemed worthy of buying commercial ad space and pumping out on the mainstream media. There are people, human beings, working on many levels to solve the problems we have. So I know that that's happening, but the story just isn't being told. It's the biggest story next to the presence of these galactic visitors that isn't being told. There are books like Blessed Unrest or Blessed Unrest, maybe by Paul Hawken, or the Cultural Creatives book. And I'm drawing a blank on the author's name, although I know it so well. And forgive me if you're listening, but Cultural Creatives. There are also websites where people are joining by the millions together to better their communities or their worlds. Mm-hmm. One that comes to mind, for example, is avaz.org.
Yeah.
AVAAZ, and Avaz means voice or song in many languages. In 2007, they were just a handful of people. Today, they're approaching 39 million people, I think, in almost 150 countries.
Wow.
Who are donating what they can, because Avaz is not sponsored by corporations or governments. But what it's doing is it's unifying people power. And that when there's a campaign that a rainforest is being destroyed in Brazil, Avaz can mobilize its 38 million, 39 million members in 7 years, imagine that, to create petitions, to donate money, to create advertising in a country where you want the politicians to be exposed for what they're doing, etc. And Avaz has won many campaigns, one after the other, in many different countries. And so I encourage people, if you want an example of how humans are behaving better or can behave well, to look at the avaz.orgs of the world, or the care2.com. And I'm sure there's many others I'm not aware of, but they're out there, and they're an example of how we humans are starting to take our power back from governments and from the financial elites and make our voices heard. And I tell you, when there will come a tipping point when there's so many of us in many countries working together across national boundaries with the common interest of humanity in our hearts, not my country, your country. There will be enough of us to create a tipping point that will create a world that nobody can imagine for the better right now, because it'll be an unstoppable wave. So it's those people that I salute right now and whose work I am watching. At the same time, believe me, that the Galactics are watching all that too, and maybe they're helping out in certain ways. But what I'm talking about right now is humanity doing its part. The Galactics are doing their. We want to join forces. Our movement right now is about us reaching to the Galactics and saying, look, I'm doing my part. I'd like a helping hand too, where you can. And they're very happy to do that. I have stories of them reaching out to us that if we had time, I could also tell. So this is a cooperative effort between us and them.
Yeah, no, it is crazy, and I'm a member of Avaz. I think that is a great organization. It just sort of speaks to the what is really the overarching theme of our website and the podcast that we do, which is the global awakening. And I think that we really are in the throes of it right now. And I think that we're truly living in maybe the most exciting time in history, to be honest with you.
I agree.
So it'll definitely be exciting to see how this all unfolds. But before we wrap it up here, I just wanted to give you another minute to sort of let everybody know. Obviously, the website is UFOContact.com, but let them know like what they can get there, what they can expect. Also, the app. People that are listening right now might want to get on the iTunes app. What do they search for in order to get that? I'm sure that they can probably find the links on the website. But for those that might just be looking on their phone right now, just sort of let's wrap everything up and just let people know what they can do and where they can find your work and all of that.
Well, thank you for that opportunity again to wrap it up. Yes, UFOContact.com is where you should start. You can learn about our Toronto retreat right there. You can also see the links for the app in the Google and the iTunes store, the Apple store, and it's under UFO Contact, and it's free to download. You can also join the social community on UFOContact.com. You can look at the community map there if you're a galactic member and find people who are nearby to you who might be wanting to make contact as well. The apps will allow that to happen too in the palm of your hand. So UFOContact.com we'd like to think is a central hub for articles by our esteemed staff and educators concerning this topic from many different angles. As well as the opportunity to practice what we preach, which is to learn the heist protocols and to make contact yourself. At the end of the day, we can talk and talk and talk and theorize and all that, but what we really want people to do is not only that, but in the end, we want people just to go out and try the contact themselves. And I think UFOContact.com has all the resources that will allow people to do just that. And if people have questions, they can always contact us there at info@ufocontact.com, and we'll be glad to help them along.
Yeah, and I highly encourage everybody, no matter how ridiculous you might think it be, just go out there and do it. These protocols are not, I mean, they're easy. I did it by myself and may or may not have had an experience as a direct result of that. So I do definitely encourage people to check out the website, check out the protocols for yourself, see what happens, I mean, what else are people going to do? Watch a Netflix on their iPad or something, So, Kosta, this has been amazing. I'm truly thankful that you gave us the time that you did. We'll have to have you back again in the future because I feel like there's so much more to cover on this subject.
I agree. Thanks for having me here and giving me the time. I love talking about this. Obviously, and I love just seeing the light go on over people's heads or hearts thinking, oh, you mean I can do this? Yeah, you absolutely can. Tell your friends.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Kosta, and good luck with the website, and I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you very much again.
All right, folks, there you have it. Another episode in the bag. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you didn't, and you don't at least have an open mind on the subject, you might be an unwitting victim of decades upon decades of blatant propaganda to make you feel a certain way about this kind of stuff. So I am sorry, but I do suggest that you guys at least go out there and do a little bit of the research that we talked about. The military and government witnesses, to me, were the big selling point, and honestly, some of the craziest, most interesting stories that you'll read. So get out there and do it, check it out. I had fun researching this type of stuff, and I did it in my free time. No one's paying me to read alien stuff online, so although I wish that they would. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Kosta is really cool. And also, he mentioned it briefly, but they're doing a retreat at the end of the month in Toronto from August 28th to the 31st, which registration ends for just in about 5 days here. So go to the website, ufocontact.com, and check out the registration for that. They're going to have some really awesome speakers, including Stephen Bassett, Kosta himself, Grant Cameron, and more. And they're going to go out there and talk about this conscious connection and make some contact. So if you're at all interested, go and check that out. As always, check out our website, vibintohigher.com. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Follow us on Twitter. All of this stuff can be found by just searching, using startpage.com, might I add, Vibe and Higher. So check it out. I hope you guys like this. There's more on the way. We cover all kinds of stuff. So I hope you all are having a great summer, and we'll see you again next time on the Vibe and Higher podcast.